My first manager, I think he only got me one placement. And based on that 20% commission, he did a lot for my career and got under $1,000.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It all started from a tweet where I said, I'm sorry. I says, artists, I'm sorry, but I have to question your passion for wanting a career in music if you can't bring yourself to do the things that aren't fun on a consistent basis. It's
Oh,
okay.
shit.
It's okay for this to be a hobby. Just be honest with yourself. And then somebody responded, professionals are in short supply and high demand. And that was the tweet that I wanted to discuss because there's a lot of truth to that. Like, you know, there are definitely way more artists than there are capable professionals to support you. Like it's not close by far. I would say, it's probably like 100 to 1. If that's probably kind of an accurate, what would you say is like, if you had to guess, Payne and Erinn, like capable professionals that are willing to support artists? I would even say it's more than that, maybe 500 to 1 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Maybe 300, but yeah.
So yeah,
I'm
so there's a
guessing
lot of
1,000 to
reasons
1.
for this. Whoever is right, the number is very high. And there are a lot of reasons for this. Since it probably always seems like I'm going in on artists. Let me say the reasons I think there are a short supply of capable professionals that are excited and willing to help artists. One, I think a lot of professionals try to get in this for the wrong reasons and realize that it's not as glamorous as they thought it would be. So people rush in, it's going to be cool, fun, it's the music industry. They start working and then they realize very quickly that's not what it is. It's going to be a very small percentage of the time that somebody kind of runs into this, finds the excitement, enjoyment they thought they were going to find, and continues to rock with it. So that's one reason that I think that, professionals are in short supply. Two, the way that it's set up, like you're not going to see any real, like once I tell my friends that have gone to business school and are educated, like what the economics look like. And this is before I tell them the stories that I've been through dealing with artists. Like just the way that the industry's set up, you're like, okay, if I tell a man or somebody that wants to be a manager, okay, this is what you have to do. These are all your responsibilities. This is what you might have to deal with. And for this, you get 15 to 20%. They look at me like, fuck that. Yo, like that's just the way that the economics are set up is like, nah, I'm good. And then you have professionals that are not professional that just never educate themselves or never like just aren't capable, right? You just have those people that come in just not capable, doing a disservice to themselves, a disservice to artists because they're not willing to kind of keep up what they need to keep up with to actually do the job in an appropriate way. Is there any other reasons why there's a short supply of professionals? That probably wasn't like a mutually exclusive list. That probably was the best list. Those are my reasons off the top.
I think that a lot of people aren't as adaptable as they think they are. And in the music industry, you have to be highly adaptable. Like literally something could work yesterday and then a day later it may kind of work, but there's more things to learn. So it's like you got to be consistently, constantly learning and adaptable. And I think that again, if you're coming in thinking that it's going to be fun or easy, or you just have to be a people person, that's something that I see. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm a people person and I have a decent business sense. I should win here. And it's like, that's not necessarily the case because in my experience, the ones who outlast are the ones who are curious and always learning and continuously evolving. The best executives evolve rapidly, or they create something of their own that's adjacent to the music industry, like a tech company or whatever. So I think that's it. And then I think a lot of great music execs just get turned off, not just by the workload and the lack of return, but the lack of appreciation, especially for that. Like it's like we work in such a personable, like people driven ecosystem. And I feel like music execs is like for the amount of money that you're making, you would think that at least the appreciation or value would be higher. But it's like, because if you're working at a corporation and they're treating you like shit, it's like whatever. Like I'm making good money, but in the music industry, 9 times out of 10, you're coming in as a volunteer and you're figuring out how to make it make sense for yourself and the artist, and you're taking second, third rate rations, so to speak, until you can turn out the type of experience or the relationships to build. So yeah, I think the lack of appreciation turns a lot away. Like I had probably 4 or 5 of my favorite managers that I've been watching for years and studying and following leave the industry this year, or at least leave the management and executive side this year. And they're like, oh, I'm going to, same like me, like I'm going to start teaching, or I'm going to go here. So I think there's a lot of reasons that people don't outlast, but also there's just not like a lot of longevity built into this. Like if you want to have a retirement, like typically, unless you're working for a label, which there's a huge turnover with labels, you have to gun this as an entrepreneur. There's not a lot of systems and mechanisms that put you in place to work for a certain amount of time and then retire reasonably. Yep. So I think when people are starting to look at forecasting and they're like, wait, I have kids. Wait, I would like to take vacations. I would like to have Decembers off. You start to look and count the cost. It doesn't lend to people wanting to stay here.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is to add some kind of unity, because, the danger is to just jump into the managers aren't built for this or the artists aren't built for this narrative. Realistically, I don't know who started this narrative, but there's this narrative that has just completely destroyed, I think, most professional relationships in the music business. And it's this notion that artists make art and the executives do everything else. And that's just never been the case. And and this narrative has done a great disservice to everybody, from rappers and songwriters to managers to labels to A&Rs, because, how many times do you hear a rapper say, I'm talented, they got 17 followers, and they say, all I need is a great manager, or all I need is a shot from a label exec, or all I need is the right A&R. And it's like, whoa, dude. No, you're better than that. You're more powerful than this. And you have to look at yourself as more than just an artist who can make music, because as you saw, it's such a mess. We learn these narratives, but they're always duplicitous. On the one hand, the narrative is that if you have talent, you should be entitled to a manager's time, and that manager's there to turn you into a star. On the other hand, there's a narrative that all managers do is exploit talent. So it's like the two can't be, both can't be right. You can't deserve to be famous just because you're talented, and you can't also necessarily have to get screwed over by the people that you need in order to become, the artist that you're destined to be. And when you see all these artists out there, like the Russes and the LaRussells and, whoever else, Tech Nines, they had to put in an incredible amount of non-musical work. And realistically, all we really have to do is study them and realize, look, there are artists who have terrible attitudes. There are managers and CEOs and A&Rs who have terrible attitudes. And the sooner we realize our own power over our own career trajectories and really commit to that, if that's what we want to do, because a lot of people just don't want to do that. Like when I was working my very first job that's 15, 16, I didn't want to start a local restaurant. That I would have needed hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. So not every rapper wants to be an entrepreneur, but the sooner we realize that that kind of mentality is generally necessary, then we can stop disrespecting each other so much, and then fewer people will quit because they feel like they're underappreciated.
When you go into a partnership, if you're an artist and you go into a potential partnership with a manager and you have these preconceived notions of just negativity of what, like, if it starts out that way, it's going to end extremely bad, right? Because you're going to be looking for things and you're going to start to think, oh, maybe this person is doing me shady, when it's completely not that. But because you're not educated and because you have this preconceived notions of that, like, managers are shady, you're going to be looking for things that aren't there. And that's just going to that's going to be the beginning of the end. Right. And that's why we have this platform, because we want to educate artists and managers on, like, so you guys can be on the same page and what the expectations are, what the role of this manager is. And it can be different from artist to artist, but you got to have that conversation so that you guys can be on the same page. So you don't plant the seeds of paranoia and something happens and you just blow it way out of proportion. And, the artist is disgruntled. He or she, like, does something ridiculous on social media. And then the manager, who may have been a solid person, like, is like, fuck this, I'm getting out of the music industry. There's so many people that are, like Erinn said, that are, like, dope and capable, that artists are essentially chasing out of the music industry. So I started with, like, things on the professional side, like, but now I have to go in on these artists, because you guys are the ones that are chasing these professionals out, because you don't even understand what this person does. You don't understand what the expectations should be. You're not realistic about what the expectations should be. You are chasing good people out of the industry because of your lack of education and because of your ego. That is why a lot of good, potentially capable professionals are leaving the industry. That is one reason.
But
It's not the only
also,
reason, but that is
isn't
one major reason for sure.
isn't some of the burden on the managers to it seems like victim blaming to an extent, but this is a profession. Um, isn't it on a lot of the managers and the executives to do better at not just finding talent, but finding the right talent, the
For sure.
right kind of, because before you said, like, I know managers who have consistently signed management contracts with incredibly talented artists with tons of musical potential. But in reality, all you had to do was observe their behavior to see that they were not the right fit. And then they manage them. And, they do everything they can, but they burn themselves out because this artist is just not the right fit. The artist is not mature yet. Maybe the artist quits after 2 years. Maybe the artist just isn't a solid person in terms of being loyal. And that could just be from their ignorance about how the music business works, and they want too much and they expect to do, next to nothing, and they're just not consistent. So I think a lot of, it's like a relationship, if you date someone who tells you they've been unemployed for the last 5 years, and then you marry them and you're like, man, why don't they have a job? It's their fault for not having any ambition, but it's also your fault because you chose them knowing who they were.
I mean, blame can go both ways for sure. But this is a message. This specifically is a message to artists, because you need to educate yourself. You got to be on the same page. Take your time, and this is for managers, I guess, as well. Like, take your time, because a lot of artists just rush into this partnership because they need help, right? Like, oh shit, I need help. This person said they're willing to help me. Fuck it, like, let's do it. And it's a much deeper relationship than that. Like, you're asking this person to do a lot of work, probably for most artists listening to this, like, for little to no money. Like, you just keep that into perspective. Like, you're asking this person, again, unless you're an artist that's killing it, right now, which, hopefully it's some artists listening to this, because I think they can get a lot out of it too. But I think most artists listening to this are in the more beginning stages of their career. But just put this one thing into perspective. Like, you are asking this person to do a lot of things for little to no money, or at least no money, probably for some time. You're basically asking for a favor. Like, so just like a huge favor. Now, a favor is too small of a word. Like, a favor is like, yo, let me get some ketchup or something. Like that favor is too small of a word for what you're describing when you ask somebody to be your manager. So just put that into perspective and be grateful for somebody that genuinely accepts that role and like really puts their all into fulfilling those responsibilities.
Oh, I feel bad for my first managers because, listen, man, you think everything's good. Like my first manager, I think he only got me one placement, and based on that 20% commission, he did a lot for my career and got under $1,000.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's basically like an intern. It's like an unpaid
Yeah.
internship, and it's going to be that for the entirety of that relationship for a lot of those partnerships.
Yeah, and I see why managers, especially managers who manage songwriters, producers, have now started asking for, co-writers splits, like 5% here, 5% there, because they want some kind of insurance for the future. Because, I'm not, if someone's managing me and I'm a beat maker, well, I'm a music producer, but if they're managing me, I'm not paying them a 401k. I'm not paying into that. I'm not paying into an IRA. So what happens when, I get 10 placements this year, their management commission off that is $20,000. The following year, I get another 10, another $20,000. They can't live off that.
No. One cat's response to my initial tweet was, I disagree. As an artist, you don't have to do everything. People have teams for a reason. And it's like, how do you expect to build this team? Like, there's not that many like well-oiled machines, like teams that just, there's not just all these like teams that are excited to start helping artists. Like, you think it's going to be a very long time before you have a team that is going to do everything that you don't want to do. Like Ja is in a good place, but he still has to do Big Ja, the comedian that I manage, for people that aren't familiar. Like, I still need him to do a shitload of stuff that he doesn't want to do. I do a shitload of stuff that I don't want to do. And he does well for himself. So like, I would imagine that even Kevin Hart has to do a shitload of stuff that he doesn't want to. There's never going to be a time that if you want to continue to progress, that you're not going to have to do the things that you don't want to do. That just doesn't exist. And if you're waiting for that, you are probably not going to be successful.
There's a saying, the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. If you as an artist want to offhand everything to your team, you're only handicapping yourself, because it's my belief, especially on the business side, I need to know at least generally how to do everybody's role. So like when I was training my team and having everybody create an SOP, I created an SOP, like a standardized SOP for everybody to follow when they're building out each department's SOP, right? That's standard operating procedure or practice, depending on who you talk to, right? So I know how to build one, then my team builds one, then I go back through their SOP if I don't know how to do something and see if I can follow it. If I can't follow it, they need to rewrite it. I'm saying that because I'm in leadership. I can't expect them to do something that I wouldn't do or couldn't do. Now, as your organization gets bigger and bigger, people have expertise, different things like that. Like, I'm terrible at running ads. I haven't messed with the Facebook ad manager in probably 5 years. So if you ask me now, I would be completely lost. But I have context, understanding. I'm always reading about ads. I'm always looking at ads. Why? Because that's a big part of any industry right now. You have to understand ads to some degree. As an artist, if you just feel like I'm just going to double down on the art, I'm going to double down on the music. My question is, okay, are you okay with taking the 20% and giving your team 80%? Most artists would lose their mind if that was proposed. But that's what it's like. You're asking somebody to come do all of your business, do all of the hard stuff, or most of it. Because some artists are like, no, 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 I'll contribute. You want us to do most of the work, but you want to take the majority of the portion and think that that's just normal. And that's why I say, like, a lot of the best managers are getting chased away, because the only thing that I'm even remotely interested in any business opportunity I enter in now is a partnership. I don't I don't start at less than 33% unless you're putting me also on salary. And I'm not even talking about management. I'm saying if I walk into any room, I'm like, I want a third of everything if you think that I'm worth it here. You have to tell me why I'm worth less than a third of everything. Because otherwise I'll just take my idea and build it myself and own it all. It's like, so like I may not be there in 5 years, I may not be there in 2 years, but right now that's where I'm at because I've seen myself build so many things and I got a portion of a portion of a portion after cost, after this, I have to pay my assistant, pay my team. It just doesn't make sense. So I think the realisticness comes back when an artist says, I've been running my whole entire business for 2 years. We've gained year over year and I want to offload some of this to other people. That's why I feel like the future of music is really artists having teams that they build around themselves, because once they understand the business, you're like, hey, I actually need a growth strategist. I need somebody to help me earn here. I need an assistant, and then I need somebody to do marketing management or whatever. Either you're setting salaries or percentages, and then it's really truly a partnership. But I think everybody's still kind of wrapped up in the old industry. And some people are like, oh yeah, I'll give my manager a bigger percentage, but it's like 5%, 7%. Like, I just don't think the understanding of what it takes to make it is there until you're doing it yourself. And by the time artists get to that point, and you see it, a lot of these artists who are grossing a ton of money, what they have is an assistant, they have a good system, and then they may have a couple of other team members that do very specific things. Most like self-made artists that I know right now don't even have managers because they start to realize if I get into a good rhythm, I can build this out and hire the team that I need. But a lot of times when artists aren't making money, they're like, a manager will change my life. It's like, you have to change your life. You are the answer to your problem. When you learn your business and you get systems in place, you'll win, and then you'll attract the type of people you need.
And I hate I mean, Funk Volume is my past, so I have to talk about it. But I still catch strays. Well, not even strays. These are direct shots from tweets. So, because when somebody responds like, "Isn't this the guy that Hobson killed or something like that?" But let me just talk about my experience for a second, right? So I didn't know anything about music. I jumped into this, and I think if I did know stuff about music, I probably would have never jumped into this, right? Because in the beginning, not only am I funding the operation, like paying Hobson's rent at times, like talking him off the ledge, literally when he's on the phone crying, saying that this is not going to work out. I'm the person that is shipping out the merch orders. I'm the person that's running all the Funk Volume accounts, interacting with fans, setting up email newsletters, building street teams, like on the road, driving these cats around the entire country, setting up press runs. Like there's so much shit that I did. And at the end of the day, like I still got shitted on. Like I just named probably 10 things I did. I could probably go on and name 100 more things that I did. And at the end of the day, I still got shitted on. I still have a video that's on YouTube right now with a bunch of lies that has over 100 million views, like throwing my name in the mud and just completely it's ridiculous. And again, I can name 100 more things that I did, and it still wasn't enough to stop that from happening, right? And this is an extreme example, right? But this is how people are getting chased out of the industry because artists are ridiculous. And it's not all on the artist. I don't mean to say that, but time and time again, it does stem from a lot of it stems from just a lack of education and unrealistic expectations. I know the artist is front and center, and every fan is in your comments saying how much they love you and how much your music has changed their life. And that just starts to go to the artist's head. That all those comments makes them forget about all of the things Erinn did for them, or all of the things that I did for them. Like those comments are just planting seeds of something terrible eventually happening, because you just start to think that everything is about you. Everything, oh, these people are here for me. It's like, whoa, did you not forget that I was your fake security guard? Did you not forget like all of the things that I had to do to like get to this point? It's like, oh, at some point it's like, oh, I don't even know what this guy's doing, or I can replace this guy with anybody. It's like, really? Like when you were in the hospital, like you could have, somebody else would have pulled up. When you got arrested, somebody else would have who would have pulled up at that time? Maybe somebody would pull up now because you have money to pay them, but who would have pulled up when you didn't have shit? That's what you need. Like who would have done that? Like the love is just completely gone as soon as people start getting these comments, and then you start to think everything is about you. But it's like, I did 1,000,000,001 things to get to this point. And if I look back and you were like, hey, Dame, you got to do 1,000,001 things to get back to this point, I'd be like, fuck you. Like, hell no. Like, there's no, I look at it, it's even, I mean, it's 50, it's 1,000 times worse, but I look at it like pledging the fraternity that I pledged. Like, if you were to tell me like, hey, you got to do exactly what you did to get to that point, to get to become an alpha again, I would probably be like, hell no. Like, I'm not doing that again. But I did it because I was blind. That's the only way that you get to this point, because is you are blind. You didn't really know what the fuck you were going to do. And you just had your head down and you worked and worked and worked and worked and worked until the shit figured itself out. Or you didn't figure itself out. You figured it out.
Yeah, that describes music careers and music entrepreneurship, because we don't know what the hell, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're getting into. We don't know how we're going to make it happen. All we have is the tenacity and the audacity to believe that we can make it happen at some point. And then we figure it out, and then it works. And here we are on a podcast years later.
But you can't, but we want, I mean, I wish I had more transparency. Go ahead, Erinn, my bad.
No, sorry, the lag is crazy. But I think even going back to Payne's point, where it's like, isn't it on the managers or like the executives to do a better job at vetting the artists or educating the artists? I think that people don't take into account that like the business side is kind of our art too. And not kind of, it is our art. That's my art. Like the strategy, the thought process. So I'm coming in also as an artist who's like, I see this other artist, I'm excited about them. But the way us business people process, we're not looking for fame or even recognition. We're coming in like we can iterate as artists with somebody that we believe in, and we can accelerate this. You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes we're just so blind because we're excited and we're like, we get to get this off too, and then I think sometimes, like for me, I had to examine this. My ego got involved, and I was like, well, if I work with this artist for this amount of time, they'll eventually see, or the world will see that I'm capable of this thing. And you end up holding on to stuff because one, you care about the people. Two, you want to get your idea off and you want to prove that you bet on the right thing and that your instincts are good, or that you've made sense of this thing. So then you end up sticking in these really, really bad relationships because your belief is that it'll eventually turn over when the person sees what you're doing, or when the world or even your industry recognizes the value that you bring. And you're like, yo, like I stayed in this really toxic environment for way too long because my belief system and my excitement got a hold of my ego. And then I couldn't even cognitively decide properly that I was in the wrong place, and I had to establish that for myself. It's like there were so many signs of this every time I worked with somebody. There were innumerable signs, but I was so gung-ho about getting my art off and so excited to see something flourish. And then for me, I can say as a woman who's a nurturer, I don't know if this is also for men, but I think a lot of managers are this way. It's almost like you're a gardener, so you're not even expecting to receive the harvest right away. So the hardship almost tells you like, oh, I'm in the right place because it's gotten hard. So then you get excited and you keep watering and nurturing and you're like, this harvest is going to be massive. And then like the plant could just decide to off itself and you're like, yo, what? Like artists are the best at self-sabotage, but us managers also self-sabotage because we never predict it. It's like we're blind because we're processing like, I would never self-sabotage. I've been working this hard for this long. We think long term, artists think short term, and then we come into a relationship and we're just confused with each other. Like, yeah, we're both believers, we're both creatives, we're both artists, but we process from a different place. I feel like the manager artist relationship is very much like the man to woman relationship. We just process from a completely different place. We think we're on the same page. And then when something blows up, we're both like, no, I was here. And you're like, no, I was here. And it's like, wait, what? I thought we were on the same page. So I think, yes, managers, which is what I do my due diligence in a very different way now. And then I get my money up front and then I sign contracts differently and I make sure there's money all in the deal. I make sure there's exit opportunities for me. But that's because after 13 years of getting burned in so many different ways, in so many dynamic ways, I was like, I literally can't do this or I'll resent everyone. So I think it's just like, it's such a unique space to be in. And if you don't understand it from an experiential standpoint, there's no cautionary tale that's going to fix you if you don't look at it with the proper eyes.
And this applies, I would say, to people in groups. This applies to producers. A lot of producers enter into that kind of relationship with an artist because they think, I'm investing. Eventually it's going to come back in. But like you said, it's the classic toxic relationship dynamic.
The thing that might still, it doesn't bother me all the time. It depends on who says it. Like the comment from artists or people online sometimes, it says, oh, that's just the business guy, or that's just the manager or whatever. Like, we have to be just as creative as you, in my opinion, right? All of you that don't know how to get your music heard, there's creativity in marketing. There's a creativity in people that can give you ideas. Why do I have to give you all the suggestions on how to get your music heard? Yeah, you made the music. Hopefully it's amazing. It's great, but not enough people are hearing it. And now you need to figure out creative and interesting ways for people to hear the music. And not only that, so that to me is creative. So you need to stop saying just anything to anybody on your team, right? They're not just, as soon as you put just in front of whatever their title is, you're super minimizing what that person is. And that could be a crucial person to your team. But I believe, I have ideas for shows. I'm always pitching ideas to artists. And why am I calling you the creative? Like, why? Like, why am I calling you the creative? And I'm the one coming up with all these ideas. So words matter, right? Learn how you're talking to people and what you're calling them, how that might affect how they feel. They might feel minimized or, lower on the totem pole because of the words that you're using when you're talking to them. The other thing, I think I forgot one other thing, but the last thing I'll say, Payne, is like, my list of boxes that an artist must check for me to even consider working with them is so long, so ridiculously long on purpose that I don't even think an artist is going to check all of those boxes. So that makes sure that I probably will never manage a music artist again. I'm open to it, but again, the list is extremely long based on what I've seen and experienced. So I would just end with, like, artists have to start putting things into perspective, start learning, tapping into these sessions, tapping into, if Erinn's coming to your city, tap into her session. You really have to understand what you are asking a manager to do, because you guys are approaching, a lot of artists are approaching it like it'll be a privilege for them to work with me. Like, it'll be like, that's how you're thinking about it, right? As opposed to probably the other way around, where it's like, yo, if you were thinking about it realistic, like, man, I'm really asking this person to be like, at my beck and call, like 24/7. Like, who does that? I should be appreciative of this person actually helping me. because I'm asking them to do all of these things for a fraction of what I might potentially make. So just put things into perspective, like learn the business, be careful with the language that you use and the words that you choose. And those would be like my final thoughts. But yeah, I mean, I'll get on the managers as well. But, you know, I feel like for this particular conversation, artists need to bear more or the brunt of this, you know, this conversation, because at least from what I've seen.
Well, I think that's fair, and we have our perspectives that we're coming from. Once again, this is At Odds Podcast with EP&D. And if you want 3 months of free premium music distribution, go to tolost.com, use the code @odds, and you will have 3 months for free. If you decide not to continue with Too Lost, then the music will not be deleted. And if you continue with Too Lost after that 3-month period is up, it's only $2.99 for each subsequent month. And I think it's cheaper if you purchase the yearly membership, which I would probably do. That's what I've always done with my distributors. So once again, appreciate you tuning in. Thank you. Thank you, Dame. Thank you, Erinn. And we will be back next week. Peace.